Sir.
Okay. Alright, so again, for today's topic, we'll be talking about C++ conditional statement. And basically, conditional statement is about deciding or creating a flow, a split of flow. Basically, it's decision making, meaning you're going to split the flow depending on the condition that you're going to set. So we are all familiar with the flow chart. So basically, in flow chart, the decision making happens using the diamond figure. So the diamond figure will split the conditionals. The condition will split the flow of the program by setting a condition, and depending on the condition, if it's met or not, then the flow will split accordingly. Okay. So if you have any question, just click raise your hand, and or you can send your questions directly here sa Google Meet in messages. So last meeting we've discussed about arithmetic operators. So if you haven't watched it already, just copy this link on your screen right now, or go to YouTube and look for this particular video. Okay. So are you done with the assignment, by the way? Alright.
Yes, sir.
So the assignment was to create whether or not, or to compute the population increase of Bais City from 2 decades ago until now. So there will be two operations to do. Basically I'm not sure what that's called. Dua ang pangayo, diba? So first is the current population after 2 decades and the increase. So the comparison between the population 2 decades ago and today. So the number of increase and the actual population. So is that what you did? Ba na yung buhat?
Yes, sir.
Alright.
Sure.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
that's good. Alright, so again, if you haven't watched it already or you wish to replay, just to review the class, just copy a link on your screen right now. So today we'll talk about conditional statements. So conditional statements in C++ or in programming generally, there are two types of conditional statement. Number one is using relational operators and using the if-else statement. So that's going to be our discussion today. We're going to discuss what exactly are relational operators and how do we use it to construct a conditional statement, and using the if-else statement as well. Alright, so before anything else, let's have a quick activity. So below is a list of students who are applying to be NORSU freshmen. To be accepted, the student must have at least 85% senior high school GPA and must acquire at least 80% in the entrance examination. Determine the student who passed and failed. Alright, so who would like to determine whether Rachel passed or not? Anyone? Based on the condition that we set, will Rachel pass the NORSU application? Anyone?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead,
Yes, sir.
Gideon.
Yes, sir.
Raise your hand, Raise your hand so I can acknowledge your name. All right, Anthony, go ahead. Rachel.
Pass, yes, sir.
Okay.
Kaya ang kuha naman at least 80% man, sir.
Okay, all right, so that's true. So let's check. Since the condition that we set is 85% senior high and then 80% entrance examination, Rachel's senior high is 92. Is that kanang positive ba siya or dili?
Positive, sir.
Okay, and then how about the entrance exam? Pass ba siya? Pass ba siya?
Pass, yes,
Okay.
sir.
Therefore, since both of the condition are met, therefore Rachel passed. All right. So how about Monica? Anyone?
Pass, sir.
Abilia, go ahead.
Dili, sir.
Dili. All right nga naman.
Kay at least 85% man ang GPA.
Okay, so X na siya. And then, how about entrance exam?
Yes, maka-pass siya, sir. But mobira man
Okay,
answer ang GPA niya.
that's true. All right. So since, although nakapasar siya sa entrance exam, pero mas siya kapasar yung high school GPA, meaning wala siya ni pass. So, unsay failed, okay? Failed. All right, thank you, Abilia. Next, Chandler. Anyone? Hamlet.
Answer, sa GPA niya, sir, kay pass siya sa entrance exam kay dili.
So, therefore,
Kung siya on na siya sa entrance
okay.
exam.
Alright, fail yapon. Alright, so how about Phoebe? Anyone? How about Phoebe? Anyone? Maria Lee, go ahead. Maria Lee.
Siya sa GPA, sir, then sa entrance exam dili kay 79 naman yung grado niya.
Okay.
At least 80 man ang sa exam.
Therefore, pass or fail? Fail. Alright, thank you. Alright, Joey. Anyone? Miguel. Go ahead, Miguel. Chance na lang. Go ahead.
Pass, sir.
Okay, pass nga naman.
Kaya ang GPA niya is 88. So, lapaw siya sa 85. Then, ang sa entrance exam, 87. Lapaw po siya sa 80.
Alright, so pass. Okay, thank you. And then, para madalita, I'll do the rest. So, Ross did good with the senior high school GPA, so he passed. And then he also passed with the entrance examination, therefore passed. And then, as for Jill, she both failed for both senior high school GPA and entrance examination, therefore failed. Alright, so it's also the same case with the conditional statement. So for us to be na-split sa indecision, diba? So when it comes to creating decision making, you have to set conditions. Whether or not, if the condition is met or not, then the flow of the program, the flow of the process will also be split depending on whether or not it's going to be true or false, or yes or no. In this case, pass or fail. Anthony, do you have any question?
Sir, nga nung fail si Chandler, sir. Pass man siya.
Yan naman.
Bali, sir.
Ay, 80 mo na isa?
Ay, 80.
Alright. Okay. That's good. So that's pass then. Alright. Okay, thank you. Alright, so ano lang. So you have to set a specific condition, and then depending if the condition is met or not, is set or not, then there will be a flow of condition. There will be a split of the flow of the process or the program. So it could be either true or false, yes or no, or in this case, pass or fail. So that's gonna be our topic was all about today. So here's one. Ano na pong gibutan? So una pong magkunauni, diba? So by the end of this lesson, the student shall explain the following hugot. Mahirap maging else sa taong palagi kang it. Alright. So hopefully by the end of this class, magets na yun yung hugot, and then try to elaborate what this is all about. Mahirap maging else sa taong palagi kang it. Alright, can you turn your cameras back on? I'm not seeing anybody now. Those who are using unlimited internet, just keep your cameras turned on. Thank you. Alright, so C++ conditional statement. Conditional statement is a set of rules performed if a certain condition is met. Alright, so going back, it's all about setting conditions. C++ supports the usual logical conditions from mathematics, like less than. Okay, so basically, we are going to compare, diba? We are going to compare if the condition is met or not. How do we compare it? We'll be using logical conditions from mathematics, like less than or equal to, greater than or equal to, and not equal to. So basically, for us to be able to compare the conditions, we will be using mathematical logical form, logical conditions. So let's say, for example, again, we use logical conditions from mathematics, like less than or equal to, greater than or equal to, or not equal to. So by trying to let's say for example on the entrance exam alone. For example, kanilang ato i-base, and then the student must have at least 80% on the entrance exam. to pass. So how do we create the equation to determine whether the student passed or not? Again, these would be our option: less than or equal to, greater than or equal to, or not equal to. So how do we create the equation or the condition to determine whether the student passed or not?
Less than or equal to, sir.
All right, let's check. So let's call it entrance. If we're going to create an equation, so entrance exam grade is equals to, it must be either at least 80%.
Greater than.
Let me erase it. So it's blank sa to 80%, diba? So what should be the logical condition that we'll be using? The mathematical logical equation. So go ahead, Miguel.
Greater than, sir.
Greater than. All right. If we'll use greater than, so meaning if 80 ang iyahang score, dili di siya kapasar. Pasar siya or dili? If 80 ra jud iyang score, pasar siya or dili? Anyone?
Dili.
Okay. But the condition here says that at least 80% man. So that also includes 80%. So how do we include 80% in the equation?
Equal to.
Okay, so greater than or equal to 80. So the grade must be greater than or equals to 80 to pass. So if the grade is 79%, is this condition true?
Less than that, sir.
Less than na siya. Therefore, this will not be accepted. Alright, so if it's gonna be 81%, so it's greater than 80 man, diba? Therefore, it's passed. Okay? So far, do you get the idea already on how to compare conditions? So we'll be using logical forms from mathematics. We'll be using less than or equal to, greater than or equal to, or not equal to. So before we proceed, by the way, I'm trying to discuss here, assuming that you already know what these less than or equal to, greater than, etc. is all about. So kasabot pataon sala ni. This is siguro elementary pataan but does anyone have any idea what this means? What do you mean by less than? All right. Tanan ba before we proceed? Ato sang klarohon. Tanan ba nakasabot og unsa ng less than or equal to? Type 1 on the
Yes, sir.
Okay, type 1 on the comment section. Type 1 if nakagets na mo unsa ng less than or equal to. Okay, so alright, that's good. So basically, just a recap. Less than meaning if we're going to compare two variables. Let's say two variables, for example, A and B. Less than meaning A has less value compared to B. Mas kamay ba iyang number compared sa B. So that's it. If it's gonna be less than or equal to, so there are two options, whether A has less value with B or A has equal value to B. Alright? Ato nagklarohon. And then greater than means A has greater value, meaning mas dako iyang value compared to B. So it could be either mas dako iyang number compared sa B. And then greater than or equal to means that A has either greater than or equals to B, meaning either dako ang iyang value or pareha siya ang value sa B. And then equal to meaning both A and B has equal value, meaning unsay number sa A same pud ang number sa B. And not equal to is both values for A and B are completely different. Okay, so for example, A is mas dako siya compared sa B, or B mas dako siya sa A, vice versa. Alright, so just a recap before we proceed any further. Nagets na, di ba? So relational operators. So these are called relational operators, by the way. The equals, less than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, and then not equal to. These are called relational operators. So take note, these are called relational operators, also referred to as comparison operators. So in mathematics, it's called comparison operators. In programming, it's called relational operators. They are used to compare two values. Below is a list of all relational operators that we'll be using in programming. So we have, again, greater than, and then less than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, then equal to, and then not equal to. So take note, basically these are the function. This is an example. So one thing to take note is, for example, equal to has two equal signs, okay? And then not equal is an exclamation, and then equal. Alright, again, equal to has two equal signs. So for example, x is greater than y, or 5 is greater than 4. Is it true? Is this true? Okay, true. X is less than y. For example, 4 is less than y. Is it true?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and then 6 is greater than or equals to 5. True?
No, sir.
Uy, nga naman.
Yes,
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 sir.
yes.
True, it's because 6
Yes,
has
yes,
greater
yes.
value. It's okay. Alright, and 4 is less than or equals to 5. That is still true. And then 5 is equals to 5. Again, equal sign, it should be 2. There should be 2 equal sign. It's true. And then 4 is not equal to 5. That is true. Okay, so that's how we are going to, that is how we're going to compare values for us to set conditions. So, in programming, this is where Boolean comes in. So if you can remember, one of the data type that we haven't really experienced or discussed in the past is the Boolean, di ba nato, character, integer, string, and one of the other data type is Boolean. So this is an example of Boolean. So it will check whether or not x is greater than y. Then it will return 1 if it's true, 0 if it's false. So I'm not going to run this. Maybe you can try it on your own. But this is how it works. So we have two variables, x and y. X having 5 no value, and then y has numerical value of 4. So in the first cout, we check whether is x is greater than y. So basically, this type of coding is called Boolean. So iyang i-check whether the condition is true. So the condition, how to check condition, we use parentheses. So is x greater than y? So since x is 5, y is 4, then of course it is true. Therefore, it returned 1. So 1 is true, 0 is false. That is Boolean. And then is x less than y? Obviously that's false. Therefore, it returned 0. And then is x greater than or equals to y? So yes, it's true because 5 is greater than 4. So it's true. Therefore, it returned 1, so on and so forth. Alright, so these are called Boolean. So I'm not going to run it, but you might as well try to do it on your own later on. So, do you have any questions with the relational operators? Nabay nalibgan ani nga part? Wala la. Alright, let's proceed. Okay, so let's try to understand conditional statement even further. Let's talk about if-else statement. An if statement is a conditional statement that performs a function if the condition is true and else if false. Alright, so for example, this is the process and then we set a condition. Now, if the condition is true, the decision or the flow of the program will kana bang split niya ba? Whether dire siya mo padayon kung ang condition is true. But if the condition is false, dire siya. Murabag tagaani mo siya og split ba? Mo split ang yung decision if it's true or false, depending on the condition that you set. So if it's true, the following would be the function to be executed if the condition is true, and if it's false, the function to be executed if the condition is false. Let's say, for example, we are going to create a program that determines if the score passed. Alright, so just the same thing with our katong sa to ang example ganina. So first is we set a variable state kanang initializing the passing score. So here the passing score is 10. Alright? So before let's try to disregard the code for the meantime. So let's say for example, we're going to create a program that will determine if the student passed the examination. So let's say passing score is 10. Alright? So student 1, ang score is 7. Student 2 is 9. Alright? So first is we're going to set a condition whether student 1 passed or not. So we're going to compare his or her grade, to the passing score. So if we're going to compare, is 7 greater than or equals to 10?
Sir.
False.
No. So therefore, student 1 didn't pass. Alright? How about student number 2? We're going to compare 9 and 10. Is it greater than or equal to 10?
No, sir.
Sure.
False.
Okay, false. Therefore, both student 1 and 2 failed. However, student 3 got 11. So, ni-pass na siya. Alright? So, we're going to set a condition. So, if ang score is failed, moingon ang atong program nga, sorry, but you failed. And then, if nakapasar, moingon ang atong program nga, congratulations, you passed. So, that is the flow. So, si student 1 and 2, ang iyang ma-receive is, sorry, you failed. But student 3, ang iyang ma-receive nga output is, congratulations, you passed. So, na-split difference between the students who passed and students who didn't. Alright? So, that's all. That's it. So, let's start with the if statement first. The if function is executed because, alright, in this example, the passing score is 10. Circuit lagi ni. sorry. Dili siya passing score. Okay. Hold on. Save ako ang example, but let's say the passing score is 7 and ang score sa student is 10. Did the student pass? In this example? Klarohon ako kay medyo na-save ako ang example din. Ang passing score is 7 di ay. Kaya ang score sa student is 7. Alright, let's just create a program out of it. So, in this case, the if function is executed because the condition is true. So, first of all, siguro delete. Okay, we'll get back to it in just a moment. For the meantime, let's take a look on the other programs na po. Another scenarios where we can familiarize na to ang if and the else statement. So the if function will be executed if the condition is true. In this example, the if function is this. So obviously, since the condition is met, so greater than or equals to 7, so since 10 is greater than 7, therefore this particular block of code is executed because the condition is true. Now, the else statement, however, okay, the else statement is the condition. The else statement is basically a block of code that will be executed if the condition is false. So, for example, ang passing score is ang score sa student is 6 and ang passing score is 7. So, is this true? Is 6 greater than or equal to 7? Let's compare. Is 6 greater than or equal to 7? So since it is false, do you think this code will be executed? Dili na. So this is false. Therefore, mo proceed siya sa next, and that's where else comes in. So if ever the condition is set is invalid or not valid, then you'll have to create an additional condition nga kung ang imong condition is false, then the function will be executed. Now, mura ba siya og last na option ba? Last na option. If ang condition is false, then it will run this particular code. Ano ba? So you're going to create an additional function that will be executed if the condition is false. So therefore, the else statement will be executed because the condition is false. Alright, so if we're going to analyze it by looking at the flowchart, so for example, the score is 6. The condition is 6 greater than 7? If it's true,
No, sir.
if it's true, then it will proceed here. But obviously, since this condition is false, therefore the flow is coming from this and this. Oh, you failed. Alright? Na-process lang? Alright, so let's try to create a program. So first of all, let's understand how do we write the syntax. The if statement is used if only one condition is true. However, there are more than one conditions. If there are more than one conditions involved, we use else if. But that's fine. Yan na lang na. We'll focus more on the if statement and the else. So how do we write the condition? First is we'll write the word if and then open and close parenthesis and then the condition. Alright? And then inside the condition would be katong block gihapon, and then inside the block would be the function to be executed if the condition is true. And then else, we will write the word else, and then no more condition because kas arap mo set sa condition in this case. Again, ang else if wala jay true, if all the conditions nga imong giset puro siya false, then else will be executed. And then same thing, we'll write parenthesis, and then inside the parenthesis will be the function to be executed if neither of the conditions are true. So let's try creating a program now. So we will try to create a program that will determine whether the student passed the examination or not. Alright, so we'll start with alright, make sure naka full screen in yung phone and then naka landscape mode, naka auto rotate so you can clearly see the codes. I'll try to make it as big as I can, but just try na lang put yung auto rotate. Go ahead, Gideon.
Sir, if daghan ko else if statement nga gamiton.
Okay. Oh, we'll talk.
Kinahanglan ako sa
Alright, it's okay. We'll talk more about else if later on. For the meantime, let's focus on the if and else, and then after that, once everything's been understood, we'll proceed with the else if. Okay? We'll discuss it. Alright, we'll discuss else if in just a moment. Alright, so again, we are going to create a program. Okay, so this program determine if a student pass the exam. Let's say passing score is let's say 75. Okay, so this program determines if a student passed the exam. So again, the passing score is 75. So let's say, for example, let's create a variable containing students grade. So let's say, for example, ang nakuha sa student is let's call it let's say ang grade sa student, let's call it grade, and then let's say, for example, yung nakuha is 80. All right, so we're going to create a condition. So how to write condition, we will start with if and then open and close parenthesis, and we will write the condition. So if grade is, again, the passing score is 75, diba? So how do we write the condition? Guys, can you help me create the condition? Let's change the name to student grade. Sige, grade lang eh. Alright, who would like to help me create the condition? Again, the passing score is 75%. Anyone? Sige, Dayan. Who would like to go in? Who would like to help me create the condition?
If passing grade is
Go ahead, Abilia.
greater than 70%.
Okay.
If passing grade
Passing grade? Asong kita passing grade? We'll only be using grade lang as our variable. Alright, it's okay. Okay, go ahead, Abilia.
if grade is greater than 75%.
Greater than?
If grade is greater than or equals
Okay.
to 75.
Alright, 75. Alright, so,
75.
go ahead. Agree bang tanan? Is this true? Is this correct?
Yes, sir.
Alright, let's try. So after we set the condition, it's grade, meaning this grade, we're talking about this, kani. Alright? So if grade is greater than or equals to 75, then we will set the function. Unsay atong ganahang buhaton if it's gonna be, if the statement is true. So we can either create an output saying,
See out, you pass.
kana man to see out sa kana open angle bracket.
Yes, sir.
All right, and then you pass. Okay, so let's check. Kana lang sa, let's check. Let's save that, and then if and
Ako
exit.
sa'yo, sir.
Unsa may save ang
Grade.
nga naman.
Ay, sa paradise, sir.
Again, we are setting the condition pa man. So ato sang i-check if true, if this particular condition is true or false. So let's check, compile and run. So it says here, you passed. Okay? Because 75 is indeed, 80 rather, is greater than 75. Diba? Is it true? So it says here, you pass it because 80 is greater than 75. 75 naman atong gisat sa condition. So how about, let's change the grade to, let's say, 74. 74 jud. What do you think will happen? Unsa siguro iyang i-output?
Else, sir.
Okay. By just looking at the code. Alright. By just looking at code, if we're going to write it, if we're going to compile and run it, sa imita ba siguro?
Error.
Filter.
Wala error. However, nothing will display. Alright? Nothing will display. It's because we only set the if condition. So that's where where else comes in. So to make our program a little more easier to use and more user friendly, more useful, then we are going to add a condition or a statement if the condition is false. So therefore, we're going to add else. Now, if the statement or the condition is false, then else will be executed. So, ana lang, write else and then do whatever you want. So you can either display a text saying, sorry, you failed, something like that. So that if the condition that we set is false, then the else will be executed. So let's save that. Let's compile and run. Alright, it says here, you failed. That is because we already created a statement that will determine whether or not the student has failed. So if the condition is true, then the if statement will be executed. However, if it's false, then the else statement will be executed. Alright, do you understand? Do you follow?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So nanay split sa iyahang flow. Dili na ang flow pareha na tanan, na anay difference, na anay split. magbulag na ang iyang flow depending on the condition that you set. So if it's true, ari siya mupadayon sa if, but if it's false, ari siya mupadayon sa else. Anthony, go ahead.
Sir, na ako'y question sa symbol, sir.
Oh, sige, go ahead.
Mag-matter pa ng braces, sir?
Braces. Ano sa'yo pasabot ng braces? Kani?
Kanang sa sulod, yes, sir.
Oh, alright. So inside the brace would be the function that you would like to execute if this particular statement is true. So you can either create a cout, or we can also create another conditional statement inside the braces. And that's what we call nested if statement. I will talk about it later on. Ano lang. So everything that you put inside the block, this one right here, will be executed if the condition is true. And then if else, everything that is inside the block would be executed if the condition is false. So yes, everything that is inside the braces matters. Everything in the braces matters rather. It's very important because it segregates the blocks from the if statement and the else statement. Okay? Answer ba ang question? Principal, si Anthony?
Yes, sir. What if kung wala dahil siya, sir?
Kung wala, then maglibog na ang program o unsa ayang i-execute. Maglibog na siya.
Mo-error mo na.
Or ma-error na siya. It's because wala man siya kabalog unsa ayang i-execute if ang statement is true. Let's try. Oh, it might just work. Okay. I think may work na po siya. But, let's try daw. Work rin na.
Why don't brace sa else po, sir?
Sige, let's try. Alright. This is a revelation for me. Work rin na siya. Naka-idea ni?
Sir.
But, this is a revelation for me as well. Mura siyang Python di ay.
Kay kasagaran ra kuan og walay bracket yung katong break mo error.
Alright. So I'm not sure if it's gonna be it really is something with the C++ program, but ever since I started C++, I always include parentheses. This is a revelation for me. But so right now using dev C++, it works, but just to make sure to add braces every time. Okay? Maybe this would be helpful if we're using another condition upon, which is called else if. Alright, but this is a revelation for me. It works without the braces. But just to make sure, guys, I'm not sure if it works with the editor na to CXX Droid. So I'm not sure if it works with CXX Droid, but just to make sure, just add braces every time, okay? This is actually how Python works. Ang Python, wala po sila braces. Python nga programming language. So I guess they are similar. I'm not sure.
Murag mo error na ganyan sir og multiple statement na.
Lagmet. If nanay, if, else if. Alright. Okay, so do you have any questions so far with this, guys?
And so far, sir.
Alright. So right now we're only dealing with two options. True or false rata. Murag duwa ra usa ra ka condition ba? But what if there are more than one condition to be checked? Okay? So what if there are more than one condition? So that is where else if comes in. Else if. Okay. Let me erase this so you can see it all. Okay. So if statement is used, the if statement is only used if one condition is true. However, if there are more than one condition involved, we will use else if. So, kumbaga, kung gamana ka og program that will involve multiple conditions na, multiple options, then we will use else if. So, how to write it? Same thing. You will write, the first one will always be always be if, and then the condition, and then function to be executed if it's true. And then if you have another option, we will use else if, and then write else if, and then write the condition upon another condition, and then function to be executed if the other condition is true. If this particular condition is true, And then the good thing about else if is there are no limits. You can add one or more, or yeah, you can add more else if depending on the conditions that you want. And then pinakalas gihapon, pinakalas na jud is if everything is false, then the else will be executed. All right. So let's say, for example, we're going to create a program that will display a greeting depending on the time of the day. So the time, if it's gonna be less than or before 11:59 in the morning, it will say good morning. And then if the time is before 6 p.m., so that means from 12 to 6 p.m., it will say good afternoon. And then from 6 p.m. and beyond, it will say good evening. All right, so we're going to create a program that will determine that will display a greeting depending on the time of the day. So nana tayo more than one condition that we'll be using. So again, the first condition is if it's before 12, 11:59 pa, it will say good morning. So that means if mo type ta og 6 o'clock, which is 600, it will display good morning. Now, if it's before 6 p.m., then it will say good afternoon. Then if the rest, let's say 6 p.m. and beyond, it will say good evening. All right, so take note of the conditions that we're going to set. So this is where kind of analysis comes in. Dapat kabalo mo ang analyze of how do you create the condition so that the program will be able to execute the proper output that you want. Okay, so again, we're going to create a program. So if you want to take a screenshot of this codes, take a screenshot now. And okay, so if you're done, I'm going to erase it all. So this program will display greeting depending on the time of the day. So if before from let's say 00, that is 12 in the, I think is, well, siguro na, I'm not sure, to let's say 11:59 a.m. it will say good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, ana. And then if it's gonna be from 12 to 12 o'clock, 12 noon na lang. April na lang, abot na nato 12. 12 noon. PM naman ang 12 noon sa? Ng 12 noon, PM na. So from 12 to
Yes, sir.
6 PM na lang. 6 PM, it will say good afternoon. And then if it's gonna be
12:01 dagin sa console.
yeah, 12:01. Thank you. So if it's gonna be 6:01 to and beyond, it will say good evening. All right. So we're going to create a program that will greet us depending on the time of the day. So nanay more than one, diba? Nanay more than one conditions. So therefore, we'll be using if for the first condition, else if for the second condition, and third if all of the condition is false. All right. So now, since we are dealing with time, obviously we're not gonna type. Let's say for example, ang oras is 12 noon. Inanap pa nato pag type. We'll be using 24-hour time. 24-hour format. Okay, so when say 24-hour format, let's say if alauna sa hapon, unsa nga oras ang alauna? If 24-hour,
13.
so that's 13, diba? If alas 5, that's 1700. What about sa military time ba? So that's what we'll be using. All right. So first is we're going to create a variable for our time. So let's say the time of the day, let's call it Okay, let's use int, and then time of the day, let's just call it time, is equals to, let's say for example 1600. Okay, unsa na 1600?
Just quote ko so.
Okay, 4 p.m. All right, so that's gonna be our time. So first we will create our condition. So if time is, okay, how do we set a condition for this? If time is, unsa man?
Less than or equal
Okay.
to 12.
Less than or equals to 1200. All right. Then it will say, let's say, C out.
Good morning.
Bali, sir.
Bali lagi. And then good morning. All right.
Good morning.
However, if it's gonna be 12:01 to 6 p.m., it will say good afternoon. So how should we write it? So again, else if,
Else if
and then the condition is time
Greater than equal to
less than lagi apa ta? Less than or equals to, what is 6 p.m.?
Answer
1800.
18.
Okay.
18.
1800. So 1800 is 6 p.m. So that means, for example, kung mo type ta og 11:59, it's still less than or equals to 1800, di ba? However, di rin na siya ma-fall. It's because namatay unang nga condition. So i-prioritize na yung unang condition that is closer to the number. And then, so basically, ang mugana ra sa else if is starting from 12:01 up until 6 p.m. lang. Alright? So for the last one, since it's gonna be the last, so we can either just use else.
Else.
Okay? Since that's the last time, and wala na may laing oras, di ba? Pwede na po tang mo else, or kay pwede na tang mo else, it's because wala na may laing oras, di ba? Muna na siya pinakalas. So bisag unsa nga number atong i-enter, okay, let's just say, okay, ano na lang, since there might be a chance nga mo enter ang tao of 5600, which is no longer time of the day, so it's okay. We'll add another else na lang to make sure. For example, ni-enter ang ni-enter, so basically 6:01 up until 23:59, right? 23:59 meaning alas 11 sa gabi. So 11:59. Okay, so we'll change this instead. So that's gonna be 0 na lang. So 12:59 p.m. it will say good evening, and then if let's say for example ni enter ang user of kuan, butang nato og, hold on.
Sayop na content.
For example, enter siya og lain nga number ba. Let's say for example ni type siya og 3200. Dili naman na siya oras. Then that's the time that we'll get an error message. And any other number it will say error. Wrong. Error na lang para madali ta. Ano? Do you follow? So again, from 12 in the midnight up until 12 in the kanang sa buntod to may siyang good morning. So 12:01 to 6 p.m. it will say good afternoon. 6:01 to 11:59 p.m. it will say good evening. And any other number it will say error. All right. So therefore, for our second else if, what would be the condition?
greater than or equal to
Less than or equals to?
Less than or equal to 11:59.
All right. What is 11:59?
Ay, kuan. 23:59.
3:59. All right. Okay, so let's check. The first one is kini. That is 12 noon. And then kani is 6 p.m. Before 6 p.m.
5:15.
When ba? I'm just writing a comment to remind us that this condition is set before 12 noon. And then this is before 6 p.m. and then this one right here is before 11:59 p.m. All right, and if everything else is gone, we'll add a CL for the I. Good afternoon, and then C out, we'll say good evening. Alright, else, if meaning ni enter ang, okay, thank you. Meaning if ni enter ang number o lahi nga number, then we'll set an error message saying error. Ano lang. Okay, so let's check. Our time, the time that we set here is 1600. What should be the output, supposedly?
Good.
Expected. It should be
Good afternoon.
good afternoon. But let's check. Let's check our program. Alright, it says here, good afternoon. It's because the number that we entered is 4 p.m. And which condition is set? Any? Before 1800, which is 6 p.m. It says good afternoon. Alright, let's try again. Let's close this up. What if we enter number, let's say, we'll try the other one. For us to be able to say good morning, let's set it to 800. 800 means 8 a.m. Right, it says here, good morning, because the first condition is met. So notice nga wala siya ni padayon sa sunod na condition, it's because na-meet naman siya ang unang condition. So therefore, the first condition is executed. Alright? And then let's change it to, let's say, 2100, which is 9 p.m. 9 p.m. So it should say good evening, right?
Good evening.
Alright, let's check. Alright, wala lang siya nigawas. Less than or equals to 23:59. Let's check. Let me try it again. Ay, akong see out wrong. Wrong spelling. Okay, let's try again. Alright, it says here, good evening. It's because the time is less than or equals to 23:59. But what if we enter any other number aside from 0 to 23:59? So let's say for example, nibutang taog 2500, which is no longer the time. Din na sa time, di ba? Din na sa tinod nga oras. Therefore, if we'll run it, it should say error. Alright, therefore our program works perfectly well. Okay? So, do you have any questions with the if-else statement? Alright, so sayon lang, di ba? Sayon lang. You just have to analyze first. I-analyze lang sa nimo o unsay condition nga imong expect, especially this type of conditions that uses time. Siguro kanimo pinaka-complicated if you're a beginner programmer. Ang time would be one of the complicated ones when it comes to setting conditions because you'll be using military hours or 24-hour format oras, and not everybody is really good with that. So, inanap ko sa ako na maglibog ko, that's why if I'm using analog time or digital time, I'm using 24 hours everywhere. My phone, if na ako digital watch or something like that, because it just trains our mind to determine hours using 24-hour format. Alright, do you have any questions? So let's try to analyze using flowchart. So for example, the time that we set is 6700. We have three conditions. We have here if time is less than or equals to 11:59. Well, obviously this is different from our example. It will say good morning. Else, if time is less than 1800, it will say good afternoon. Else, it will say good evening. But in our case, if we're going to create the flowchart, this should be based on example ganina, this should be 1200, and this, then we have another condition here that says, or not condition but flow, that says else if time is less than or equals to 23:59, it will say good evening, and then else says error. Ano? Alright, notice nga, if we're going to check the flowchart, na siya split sa iyang decision. Dili siya mo padayon kung less than 1200. Dili siya mo padayon if the time is less than 1800. Dili siya if it's 23:59. And then here, if everything is false. Alright, so let's have a practice activity. Let's write a program that will determine whether the number entered is odd or even. What do you mean by odd numbers? What do you mean by odd or even?
Answer katong 1, 3, 5.
Alright. So, odd numbers
Even
are
to
not
first.
divisible by 2. Okay? Not divisible by 2. That's correct, Anthony? Meaning, imo siyang i-divide mo siya by 2, na siya remainder ba? So, that is, for example, we have 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, etc. Alright? Even number is divisible by, meaning, if mo siyang i-divide by 2, kana bang always nga ang i-answer na siya answer ba nga walay remainder with 0 remainder kumbaga. So that, for example, we have 2, 4, 6, 8, so on. Alright, so that's odd or even. Sakto ba? Sakto ba kung definition?
Yes, sir.
Alright. So we'll write a program that will determine whether the number entered is even or odd or even. So what processes are involved? First is we're going to use input and output. Okay, nasa itong example ganyan na wala tayong gamit input and output. But when you'll be doing a program on your own, make sure to use input and output function. And then obviously we'll be using arithmetic operation and then if statement. So what would be the arithmetic operation that we'll be using? What do you think? For us to determine whether a number is odd or even. Based on your knowledge from the previous lesson, what would be the arithmetic operation that we'll be using?
Plus, minus, sir.
Division.
Division that.
Okay. Na ay two ways on how to determine this. First is division. Again, because based atong example, based atong definition, the number must be divisible by 2, di ba? That's even. If it's not divisible, meaning if you divide na to na siya remainder, then the number is odd. Alright? So that's one. That one option is to use division. Second one, what would be the second option siguro? Based sa inyong knowledge last week na lesson. Unsa siguro? Okay, let's test whether or not you really studied the lesson last week. What do you mean by modulo? Anyone? Mobile ani og gatuon ba dyan isla sa last week nga klase be? Sa pre-recorded? What do you mean by modulo? Go ahead.
Sir.
Nilamil. I think Nilamil. Okay, go ahead, Nilamil.
Wala ra, sir.
Nitingog si Nilamil. Alright. Okay, go ahead, Anthony.
Remainder, sir.
Siya remainder. Right, so when you say modulo, that is the remainder after a number is being divided. Okay? So for example, what is, for example, if I'm going to write 3. Kana. Diba modulo is mamanay symbol? Is this true?
Yes, sir.
Alright. So if I'm going to write this, what would be the answer?
1, sir.
Alright. 1. Okay. Would everyone agree? Agree ba ang tanan? Agree ba?
Yes, sir.
Alright. Let's say kani. Unsay answer ana? Anyone?
0.
That is 0. Alright. No. Again, The answer, okay,
Divide na.
here's what this is all about. So for example, the first example, 3 and then modulo 2. So ang unang buhaton is 3 divided by 2. That is 1 remainder 1. Ang iyang answer is ang remainder. Oh no, erase. All right. For example, 3 All right, let me erase everything. For example, 3 divided by 3 modulo 2. Ang unang buhaton niya is 3 divided by 2. No. Ayun, don't use this. Okay. 3 modulo 2. Ang iyang buhaton is 3 divided by 2, correct? So the answer is 1
Yes.
and then remainder 1. So ang answer is 1. Ang remainder ang iyahang i-display. So for example, 10 modulo 2. Ang iyang buhaton is 10 divided by 2, which is 5, remainder 0. Diba? Kung i-divide mo ang 10 og 2, ang answer niya is 5 man dyan. 5 sirado. So therefore, the remainder is 0. So again, modulo returns the remainder. Okay? Ang iyahang i-return is ang remainder. So I think the best way to create a program, the arithmetic operator that we'll be using would be modulo to make it easier for us to create the program. Alright? Do you, nagets ra unsala na modulo? Again, iyang i-divide ang number, pero ang iyang i-return is ang remainder lang. So therefore, naaray to remainder 0 or 1. Naaray duwa ra siya kakuan ba? Duwa ra ang iyang kung i-divide nato siya by 2. Alright? If we're going to check whether the number is odd or even. Nagets ba? Okay, before we proceed, nagets ba what do you mean by modulo, guys? If nagets lang, type 1 in the type 2 in the comment section. Katong nagets ra, if not, type 0. Alright. Okay, I'm seeing 2. Okay, that's good. Let's proceed. Let's create a program that will determine whether the number is odd or even. So, naka-screenshot na ba tanan? I'm going to, kulang pa din return 0. Alright, if you want to take a screenshot, do it now, because I'm going to erase this. Okay na? Alright.
Miran ra lagi sir, walay return 0.
Mura na siya, pero if we'll be dealing with multiple functions na, right, because we only have one function, but if we'll be dealing with multiple functions na, we have to, each function should end with return 0. So for example, if we create a laing function here, let's say public, but right now we're not going to be discussing it. It will be discussed maybe in the future. But right now, since we are only doing one function, which is int main, then basically automatic na siyang wala na may kasunod. Pero if nanaylain, we have to make sure that this particular function is terminated first before we proceed to the next function.
Na may public domain.
Mga public na mga functions. And maybe it will be discussed to you during your ITS 104 programming 2. I'm not sure if ako ang instructor ana, most of the time silang either Sir Yeye Badoy or Mark Julius Badoy or Miss Daisy Ann Lago or si Miss Marilyn Baldonado. They are the siguro sila may mga programming 2 instructors because I will be moved to graphics design and web development as well. So that's it. Again, return 0 is a terminator for the function terminator, since we only have one function, which is this main function. Therefore, return 0 is not necessary, but it's something that we need to practice at doing. Yeah, because again, if we'll be doing multiple function, we have to terminate each function first before proceeding to the next one. Right? So next, let's create a program that will. Okay, this program will determine if the number is odd or even. Alright, so let's make it proper. So we will use input output function. So let's say, first of all, we'll create the variable. So we will use int, and then let's call it, let's say num1 or num lang. And then we have our first variable, and we will use input and output function. So first we will create an output saying enter a number. By the way, this is how you will be doing your assignment test, okay? Make sure to always use input and output function on your assignment. So cin, that means we're going to save it somewhere. Asa nato siya i-save? So here, if the user enter a number, asa nato siya i-save?
Num.
Alright.
Num, sir.
Num. Alright, just keep your cameras turned on, guys. Hindi pang follow na po katong have unlimited internet. Just keep it turned on so I can see you. Alright, thank you. Ay, palunga lagi ninyo. Maulaw mo? Ay, kaulas ng klase. Makita na next stick pohon unang makaila ko di yung mga para dili awkward. Or basig makita ta sa plaza, sa na at least kaila ko ninyo. O pa ko nakitaan sa kastudyante na ako so far. If naaman gani, wala ko kaila kay dili ko kakita ninyo.
Basig magkita si Craft.
Citycraft. Uy, wala ko. Nakato ko dito Citycraft. Dili mi ganahan kay dito manggod kay langas manggod. Alright, we'll talk about that later on. Pero dili kayo ko makita sa Citycraft kay dili kayo ako ug akong mga friends dili kayo hilig og langas. Ato mi sa atbang sa Citycraft. If magtambay man gani. Kami ingaw.
Balay simbahan na jud sir.
Simba bitaw. Pwede mo pod usahay. Ako nara ko diri Nara mo na akong hobbies kana sa likod na to. So if pangitawan ko ninyo, I'm always here at home. Alright, so nanatay C out, nanatay C in. So every time that the user will enter a number, let's see what we'll do to it. We'll going to create a condition that will set if the number is odd or even. So how do you think we should set the condition? Unsaon siguro nato para makaset a condition whether the number is odd or even? Unsaon siguro? Anyone would like to try? So how do we determine? Diba atong gisgutan kaina is we will use modulo. So how do we write it here? Num is siguro. Anyone?
Percent, sir.
Okay, percent and then
2.
2. Alright. First of all, yan lang. Before that, we'll do this. Para di ta maglibog. Pwede ta mo gamaan percent 2 equals to 0. But I don't think this is a really good condition to set. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to create, diba? We already have we already have our own variable. Let's create our arithmetic operation here first. Buhaton sa nato ang atong arithmetic operation. So therefore, we'll set, let's say, our number is, we'll create another variable. Let's call it result na lang, int result, and then how do we add value to our result? Result is kato na, butang na ta og num percent 2. Alright? Meaning, whatever it is that we enter for num1, iyang i-divide by 2, and then, ang iyang answer will be saved to result. Do you follow?
Yes, sir.
Do you follow? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Ayan. So, first we enter the first number, and then we created a variable num, and then created another variable for result. Now, what is the value? We know that the value for num is whatever it is that the user will enter. What is the value for result? The value of the result is number, for example, the enter siya of 5. So 5 divided by 2, and then 5 divided by 2, and then the remainder, which is in this case, it should be 1, and that's gonna be the value of our result. Do you follow?
Yes, sir.
Alright. Simple lang na. So now that we have value for our na-compute na nato ang modulo, how do we set the condition here? How do you think we should set the condition? Guys.
If result
Okay, result is isa man.
not equal to 0,
Alright, ana na lang. We will use equals. Ana, if it's equals to, let's say, 1. So again, if you'll be using equals, it should be do two equal signs, okay? So meaning, if ang value is absolutely 100 siya, 100 siya, then it will say, is it odd or even?
Even, sir.
Okay, kung naman siya i-result nga 1 ba?
Odd.
Okay. Ha? Klaro na to. Diba?
Odd, sir.
If na siya remainder, meaning,
Odd number.
that's odd number. So,
Odd. Ayan.
the number is odd. Alright. However, so we're going to create. Oops, thank you. However, if the result is
Not
z,
equal.
we can use not equal. Pwede tang mo gamit, or we can also set to 0. Kung 0, that is the number is even. Diba? Mo man itong description, diba? Kung odd numbers, if we're going to divide it by 2, naa siya remainder nga 1. But if ang even numbers, if divide nato siya og 2, the result is 0. However, if somehow, maybe na ay glitch sa na ay glitch sa mathematics, if somehow ni-result siya og any other number, then we can add an error message stating error as see out. This will not happen, but just in case, there's an error. Alright, and return 0. Before we proceed, nagets ba on how do we set the condition? First is okay, thank you. Malimit yung semicolon. Alright, first is we determine the number, and then the next is we're going to compute for the remainder. So how do we compute the remainder? We're going to create another variable, and the value of that variable is number divided by 2, or number modulo 2. What it does is, ang iyang buhaton is number divided by 2, let me write, divided by 2, and then producing remainder value. Although i-divide na to siya 2, pero ang iyang i-output is ang remainder value lang yun. So since 2 man atong divisible or dividend or whatever that's called, there are only 2 possible values, either 1 or 0. So that's why we set a condition. If the result is equals to 1, then it's gonna be an even number. If it's gonna be 0, odd rather. If the remainder is 0, then the number is even. But if somehow there's a glitch in, so the term na a glitch sa hold on. Matrix. Na a glitch sa matrix, and somehow it produces any other numbers aside from 1 and 0, then it will say error. Do you follow? Nagets na ba? Alright, let's test. Execute, compile, and run. Then enter a number. Let's say we will enter kanang dako jud ayo. Let's say 456. If you click enter, it will say the number is odd daw. Let's test. Is that true? Let's check. Di siguro. Or 56 divided by 2. 2 to 8. Dapat 0 ang answer. Okay, I'm not sure. Okay, the result is 1.
Ang kuan lagay, sir, ang result niya kuan. Add,
Diba
sir.
kay add man ang number imong gipangita, sir?
O add ang result niya, sir.
Result niya kay R.
Right. Nya kay dapat ang result ani is ang remainder ani dapat 0, di ba? 228 remainder 0. So dapat answer niya is even, correct?
Divide,
Yes, sir.
divide by 2 ng gagay, sir.
Right, pero we're only looking for the modulo man. Ang remainder man dapat ang iyahang i-produce.
Mm.
So let's check if na by error.
It-try sa daw gamay number, sir.
Okay, I think this is something. Okay, I think that it. Let's try to move this down. Kani, let's try to move this because let's move it after we enter the number. Kana. Let's save that. Num result. Okay, let's do it again. Okay, let's try using small numbers. Let's say 3. That is odd. Okay, that's true. So let's try it again. Let's do 6. It should be even. Alright, okay. Alright, mura dit ang error. First, on the first part, we set the variables. But on the actual computation, make sure that we already entered the number. Okay? Na gets na ako ang error. It's because in this case, if dili nato ibutang, wala pa ta ka-enter sa number. Alright? That's why the algorithm here is very important. Katong step-by-step procedure. So we need to get the number first. Okay? We need to enter the number first before we add the computation. Right? Nagets na?
Glitch dito sa matrix.
Na-glitch sa matrix pero di kato siya nga glitch gikan to ni sir nga glitch na save si sir. Alright. So ganina ang nahitabo is nagaman na tadaan sa computation here nga wala pa ta ka-enter sa number. So we need to enter na number first kana before we proceed with setting up a value for our integer result. Alright. So let's try again. Let's save that, compile and run. And this time, let's try using huge numbers. Let's say,
56 ko na, sir.
sige, balik tas 456.
Balik sa iyo, sir.
456. Uy, nga na, di ma-erase. 456. Alright, it now says even. Alright, so it's really important that since we need to make use of the input function first before we proceed with the computation. Alright. Do you have any questions so far? Let's have another activity. Program number 2. Write a program that will perform arithmetic operation depending on which operation to use. Alright? So basically, we're going to create a program, a calculator, a simple calculator that will perform arithmetic operation depending on the operation to use. So if we're going to, basically, we're going to use two numbers and then we'll use plus to add, minus to subtract, forward slash to divide, asterisk to multiply, modulo to get the remainder, and then unsa pa to lain. Okay, this will determine if
Plus.
okay, what is plus plus? Increment, meaning we will add pila ka ba?
1.
1, and then the other one is
Minus.
minus. That means decrement.
Decrement.
Minus 1, kumbaga. Alright,
Yes,
that
sir.
is add. That is
Nakagama nung kuha ni sir, wala lang kung kuha na ng modulo, increment.
pero okay, because yung assignment is simple naman. So this time we're going to create an actual calculator using all of the arithmetic operation. So divide and multiply and then modulo, increment, decrement. Alright, so siguro now that you already have understanding what that plus means, so therefore C++ meaning an increment from the older version of programming language, which is C. Meaning C++ is an increment, one step higher of C. That's why it's called C++. Alright, so what processes are involved? We'll be using, of course, input and output, and then if-else statement, of course, and arithmetic operation So same thing. Let's declare our variables. We will use basically we'll use two numbers lang. Calculator of two numbers lang sa. For the first two numbers, we will call it num1 and num2, and then we will use select to choose whether plus, minus, divide, multiply, etc. And then sum, product, difference for the value for para ani, etc. And then float for our quotient. It's because there might be chance that quotient will produce decimal points. Abilia, do you have any question? Any question? Anthony, any question?
Yes, sir.
Unsa man?
Ang kuan sir ba, ang result ano sir, katong kuan sir, mugawas ang addition, subtraction, tanan sir,
Mm.
abot sa
So we will set a condition ba. This time we will use condition, and this would be our condition, whether to use add, minus, divide, multiply, modulo, increment, or decrement. Because nanay split sa flow ba. So if we will use add, then it will add both the numbers. If we will use minus, then it will subtract the first number from the second number. Nga na ba? So our condition here comes in with this operation, with the arithmetic operation. Anyway, let's
same bra to yung example sir sa video.
sa video. Unsa man nga video sa previous na class?
Oo, previous sir.
Yes, pero this time we'll be using conditional statement. Anyway, let's just do it here. So this program will I'm not going to add that now. So we'll create our first integer variable. Let's call it int num1 and num2. So basically, the first num1 and num2 would be the two numbers that we are going to compute, to calculate, and then we'll have another. Go ahead, Gideon.
So dili ra mo pili ang user of unsa nga operator yung ganito.
That's what we're
Kita na tanang result.
No, that's what we're going to do. We are going to let the user choose whether plus, minus, divide. Dire na mo sulod ang condition. So unsay pilion sa user, plus, minus, nana ba? Papilion nato siya. So nanay split sa flow. So dire na tamo add sa condition sa ato ang arithmetic operation. So for example, for the meantime, let's declare the variables. We have int select. So we are going to create a variable for us to be able to select kung sa mayang pilion, like plus, minus, divide. So let's call it select. And then we have another integer for the values, sum, sum, and then difference, product, etc. Okay. So for example, we have int, we have sum, product, difference, sa paman. Sa quotient, since most of the time when we divide two numbers, there might be chance na ay decimal points, so we will use float for that, okay? We will use float. So we have sa increment, so int kana, and then decrement. Okay? And then float for our quotient. Mo ba spell yung quotient or CUOT? Murag kana sa?
QU.
QU. Okay.
Kana sir.
Alright. So we will use input. So we will use an output first. That says enter the first number. And then cin. That's gonna be in num1. And then after that, we will enter another number. Enter the second number. And then save it to, asa na to i-save? Num2. Alright, now that we have values for num1 and num2, we're going to create computation. But, okay. Alright, so we'll create a condition now. Whether the user will use plus, minus, divide, subtract, etc. Okay, so we'll set a condition here, and we will use select. All right. By the way, before that, we will first enter. We will let the user know that they are going to enter which operation to use. So select, for example, we'll say enter 1 for addition. So kung addition, we'll enter slug 1. And then line break. Ano na? Ano to line break? Ano to sa? Backslash n ba to?
N.
Okay,
Yes,
backslash n.
Pwede ka
Alright. And then enter 2. Nag-guess na idea? So basically mo enter siya number para mo select sa addition or subtraction ba. Alright? So enter 2 for subtraction. Yung
Line break.
yung enter 3 for multiplication. Enter 4 for division. Backslash n. Enter sa pamilain. Addition, subtraction, multiplication. Enter 5 for modulo.
Pwede rin lagay mag-on sa end ano sir. Kaya malapaw man.
Pwede po. Pwede po. Pero ako I'm trying to save up line of code. Pero it's okay. Again, nag-gets naman yun sa di ba? You can use end line or you can use backslash n. For the meantime, allow me to use backslash n. But again, you can use end line if you'd like to. And then enter enter 6 for increment. And then backslash and enter 7 for decrement. Kana naman, di ba? Decrement.
Yes, sir.
Right? Alright, so again, you can use end line object, but right now I'm just using backslash n. Alright, now if the user enter a number here, 1 to 7, then it will say, I will save it to select. So therefore, our select has a value now, depending on sa enter sa user, either 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7. So now, nanay value ang ato ang select, therefore, we can now create our condition. So if ni-enter siya 1, we will perform addition, correct? Ni-enter siya 1, we will perform
Yes, sir.
addition. So therefore, if, unsa siguro condition na to?
Num1 plus num2.
Dili pa. Muset sa ta condition of unsay gi-select sa student as a user. Therefore, we will use select is equals to 1.
Select 1 then.
Kana. If kung 1 ang gi-select sa student as a user, therefore we'll perform addition. So what should be the operation that unsa siguro equation atong buhaton?
Num1 plus num2.
Right. And what should be the value? Unsa siguro nga unsa atong equation buhaton? Try to take a look at our variables here. We'll use sum is equals to num1 plus num2, correct?
Yes, sir.
Sakto ba? Alright. And then we will add here a cout that says the sum is, and then concatenate it with sum. And then add a period. Nag-gets rin concatenation, di ba? So the sum is, and then the value of sum. So for example, ni-enter siya of 5 and 6. So iya siyang i-add, and then it will say the sum is 11. And then concatenate it with a period. So I'm hoping everybody's already fully understood when it comes to concatenation. Alright, next. What if ni-enter ang user of 2? Therefore, we'll be using subtraction.
Else.
So we'll use else if select. Again, 2 equal sign means absolute value. Absolute equals pa. Pareha sila of value. Both of them. And then we're going to use, unsa siguro?
Different.
Diff.
Right, sir.
Diff. Because we're talking about difference. Subtraction. And num1 minus num2. Same thing. We'll display the difference is, and then value of diff. Concatenate it para natay period. And then else if ni-enter siya og 3. Ang say 3 gani, multiplication. Therefore,
Subtract.
if ni-enter siya 3, then it will say prod, di ba? Since we use prod, kana,
Yes, sir.
is equals to num1. And saan ginato pag multiply ang number? Unsay
Asterisk.
asterisk. Okay. So it's not x, but it's asterisk. Okay, good thing. It's good to know that you study in our previous class. Kasi wala ko ga-discuss ato. Next.
See out, sir.
Alright, thank you. See out para i-display nato ang output. So see out the product is, and then the value of our product, which is prod, and then concatenate with a period para na i-period ang atong result. So another else if niyan select siya 4, ang say 4 na to, division. So this time, since we'll be using division, saan siguro na to?
Total flow.
Float.
Sir.
Agoy na, tayo sa na po na-click na po. Dali lang ha. Tayo sa na po na-click na ako sa application nga equation. Okay. So we'll use code. And then num1. Unsa na to pag-divide og num1 og num2?
Slash.
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 Alright. So anything else you would like to add with this particular one? I-discuss na ko na but anything that you would like to add? Unsa na to pag-divide and
Float,
make
sir.
sure nga mo. Okay. We will add float.
Parentheses float, sir.
Alright. Why do we need to declare this? Anyway.
Possible na siya decimal, sir.
Alright.
Like decimal.
Okay. So without this, ang iyang answer, for example, 5 divided by 3, the answer should be 1 remainder 1, di ba? 1.5, kumbaga. The 0.5 will not be displayed. It's because, again, I'm not really sure. I cannot explain why, but we have to add float to any of these koan. Bisag asa, pwede nato ibutang diya, pwede natong i-add pwede natong i-add basta makadeclare ng tag-usa. Therefore, the compiler will expect a value with decimal point. So pwede natong butang bisag asa, pwede sa first, pwede dire, or pwede dire. In this case, we'll just add it on the first number. Alright, extend lang dali lang guys ha. I think just 10 more minutes because it's already 10:59. Is that okay? Iwasan lang nato ni and then we will end.
Okay na, sir.
Alright, thank you. So next is else if we're going to select 5, it's for modulo.
See out, sir.
See out pa, sir.
Okay, thank you. So the quotient is, and then the value of our code. Alright, wrong spelling dahil ato ang code here. Sakto ba? Code. Alright. Okay. And then if we select 5, that is modulo. So that is so napalit tayo mod rin. Let's call it mod. So mod is equals to num1 and then num2. And then see out the modulo is, and then mod. Do you follow, guys? Or am I talking too fast? Do you follow? Okay, that's good. And then if we select siya 6, it's gonna be, ang sabi ito, 6 is for increment. So we have increment is equals to increment of the first number. Okay? Ang butang nato, since usara man kabok ang atong i-increment, so increment nato ang first number, and then for the decrement, the second number, ang num2. Okay? So for num1, we will increment num1, so num1 plus plus, and then let's say C out the increment value of the first number is, and let's call it increment, and then else if na pod para if select siya 7, then it will say i-decrement na po nato ang num2. So decrement is equals to num2 minus minus,
minus.
alright, and then C out the, hold on, nanawag akong dito. Kaya sa nanawag kong dito. Si ko na tatawag ako mamaya, nasa pa ako. Salamat po. Okay. Alright. So the decrement value, decremented, sige na, value of the second number, pero dapat naman ay past tense, diba? Pero sige na, kita-kita rabita. Alright. Now, what if ni-enter ang user of number lain, let's say 8, 9, 10, which is no longer 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We will use an error message using else statement, and let's say error, wrong operator. Kamu na bahala sa error message ninyo, basta kay wrong operation. Error operation na lang para medyo high text lang. Error operation. And then return 0. Can you spot any possible errors? Can you spot any possible errors, guys? I think not. Let's check. There's only one way to check whether everything's working. Compile and run. Alright, let's enter the first number. Let's say, random rin na kayo. Enter the second number. Alright, so we will enter 1 for addition, enter 2 for subtraction, enter 3 for multiplication, and so on. Let's start with addition first. Let's type 1, that is addition. Therefore, it will say, the sum is 801. Alright, so basically, naanay split sa flow. So since we selected addition, then it proceeded to the addition nga, which is kani. I-add niya ang first number of second number. Okay? So let's try it again. Let's compile and run, and this time we'll select katong subtraction. So another random number, and then we'll select 2 for subtraction. The difference is 4, 5, 6, 2, 2, 2. I think that's correct. Sakto ba? So since we selected 2, it subtracts the first number from the second number. Or, nana. And then let's try again. This time, let's try to do the product. So let's enter number. Let's enter 3 for multiplication. And it says here the product is kani. So, I don't think, sakto ba niya? Let's try to check calculator. Let's check. So we created a calculator app, pero to check whether our calculator is working, we need to use another calculator. 2, 3, 4 multiply by 4, 5, 6. 106, 704. Alright, that's correct. Do you still follow, guys?
Yes, sir.
Alright.
Yes, sir.
So we're just testing.
Same.
I-test lang nato tanan to make sure that everything's working. This time, let's do the quotient. So let's go on. Let's input an obvious number. Para kanang muna siya decimal point ba. So if we divide natin siya of 2, obviously dapat siya na siya decimal point. We will use division. So let's enter 4. Okay, the quotient is 21.5. Now what will happen if I float? So 43 and 2. Let's try to change that rule. Okay, let's remove the float. Let's save that. Answer gana is 21.5 or something. Let's try to check if tantangon na to ang float no word. Let's see what will happen. 43 and 2, then 4. 21 na lang ang i-enter. Mawala ang 0.5. Okay? So, therefore, always make sure to add float. Bisag asa, pwede sa num2 or sa first part. Basta kayo makadeclare yung tagkas at least. Okay? So, let's proceed to the modulo. So, execute, compile and run. Let's enter an obvious rang answer. Let's say 5. Oh, no. Sige ka na lang. And then 3. Alright. And then modulo is 5. So we'll enter 5. The modulo is 0. Let's try again. Compile and run. Let's say 5 and 2. And then 4. Ano? Sa'yo. Modulo is 5, so we'll enter 5. Okay, modulo is 1 because 5 divided by 2 is 2, remainder 1, diba? Correct?
Yes, sir.
So that's why it produces modulo is 1. So let's check the increment. Let's say, for example, the first number is 2, 3, 4. So we'll increment the first number. So let's type in 6. Then the increment value of the first number is 2, 3, 4 lagi. Wala lagi siya. Wala lagi siya ni add. Okay, so I think sa iba akong gibuhat. I think diri na to ibutang sa first. Let's check. Plus num1. Alright, so ibutan din nato sa tubangan day guys. Ang plus ibutan nato sa tubangan instead of sa likod. So here our first number is 1, but the increment value is 2. So plus ibutan sa nato ang increment value in the first part. So let's check the decrement. 5 and let's say 6. And let's test the decrement. So let's type 7. The decrement value of the second number, which is 6, is 5. Alright. Okay, so do you have any questions?
None, sir.
Okay, don't you worry. I'm going to send this. Kuan.
Pa-screenshot, sir.
Sige. Screenshot tara.
That's it.
Sure. Medyo gamay siya, so make sure naka full screen. Iana inyong cellphone, no? Auto rotate. Then full screen. Or let's see. Pwede ta makasend og picture dire sa in-call, dili sa GC na lang nako i-send. Hold on. I-send ako sa GC. Okay, listen na lang ako later guys. Medyo gabagood na akong laptop. Adara. Okay, nasaan na? Alright. So, for your assignment, kaya anay, napaanong tani Pero sige na lang. For program number 3, write a program that will compute the electric bill according to the following condition. So, if 50 kilowatt hour or less, it's gonna be 10 peso per kilowatt hour. If 51 to 100 kilowatt hour, it's gonna be 12 pesos per kilowatt hour. So if the resident uses 50 kilowatt hours or less, ang iyang rate is 10 peso only per kilowatt hour. If 51 to 100 ang yang nagamit, then it will be 12 peso per kilowatt hour. But if 101 kilowatt hour or more, it's gonna be 15 peso per kilowatt hour. So what are the processes involved? Input and output, if-else statement, arithmetic operation. So we will use float as our variables, and these are the codes. So di lang na ako i-discuss ni, and then nato i-try, but just try to take a look. So basically, the first condition is, if ang usage is below or equals to 50, then the rate is times 10. Okay, 10 peso per kilowatt hour man. If it's more than or less than 100, meaning 51 to 100, the rate is 12. Kana? And then, if it's going to be more than 100, then the rate is going to be 15. Alright? So, for example, in this example output, ang usage niya is 52.4. Therefore, the rate is 12 kilowatt hour, 12 peso per kilowatt hour, and the bill is 628.8. So, nindot unta ni ato ni i-try, but we ran out of time already. So, based on your knowledge with arithmetic and arithmetic operation, and try to do it yourself. Okay? And here's your assignment. Here's your assignment. Write a program that will compute an employee's withholding tax according to the following condition. So it's the similar with this. Similar sa problem number 3. So if ang salary sa user is less than or equals to 15,000 pesos, the tax would be 12%. Okay? If ang salary is 15,000 peso to 15,001 peso to 25,000 pesos, the tax is 15.5%. And if it's 25,001 and above, the tax is 20%. So your job here is to compute employees' withholding tax according to this. So what you're going to do, you're going to use input and output function. It would be up to you to determine kung unsay salary sa user. So basically, you'll enter salary for all the conditions. So sa inyong screenshot unya, mag-enter mo og salary is below 15,000. Then another screenshot is for the salary for 15 to 25, and another screenshot for 25 and above. So since there are 3 conditions, you're going to set 3 outputs, okay? 3 screenshots, guys. Do you follow? And then how to compute? This is an example. So for example, ang salary is 14,500. Therefore, the tax group is 12%. Okay. Therefore, you're going to compute tax is equals to 14,500 multiplied by 12%, which is 0.12. That is the withholding tax. So, ang inyong output is 1,740. Pero, dapat i-output nimo kung unsa pud siya nga tax group. Okay? So, just follow this particular example here. Ang inyong output is this. For example, salary is 14,500. Kamo ang mo enter ani. And the moment that you enter the salary, it should display which tax group siya na belong. So again, since the first one is 12%, if it's less than 15,000, so since it's 14,500, so it's less than 15,000, so it nabilong siya sa 12% tax group. And after that, this is the computation. Tax is equals to 14,500 times 0.12. That is 12%. And then the withholding tax is 1,740. Alright? And then...
So, gaman siya na mo ko answer? Kanang 12, 15, 20? Kinagsa?
Oh, magama mo para 12% and then 15.5% and then 20%. So, make sure nga...
siya, sir.
Ano man?
Sa output na sir.
Yes, sa output, make sure naka-output mo para 12%, na po mo output para 15%, and then 20%.
Okay, sir.
So, balik tulo ka output ba inyong i-produce? Or maybe 4 kung ganahan mo na error message. I don't think there will be any error message, so it's okay. You can, optional na lang ang error message, which is the else. But make sure you'll be able to output 1 for the 12% tax group, 1 for the 15.5 tax group, and then 20 for tax group. Again, your output is this. I-output ninyo, kaning input siya, And every time that you input a number, it will display which tax group. Dapat i-display po niya ang nga tax group. Output this. And then output the withholding tax. So duha ka output each time na ay tax group and output. So pare ano ba? Try to make your output as clear as possible. For example, this one. This is an example output from activity problem number 3. So pag enter nimo og 52.4, belongs iyang gibutangan ang iyang gi-output niya unsa siya nga rate. Na belong siya sa 12 peso per kilowatt hour rate and then the actual field. So hopefully inana pa din yung output. Okay, let me write it down here. So it should be output ninyo should be something like this. Salary, and then enter the salary here, and then tax group, and then enter which dili enter, but make sure na output siya either kani ba, kani or kani. So either 12% or 15.5% or 20%, and then lastly withholding tax. Here. Okay, unsa ang gyud pag-compute sa withholding tax? I-multiply ra nimo 14,500 times the tax group. And then that is the withholding tax. Do you have any question with the assignment?
None, Prof.